Hello and welcome. This is a Take It to the Max podcast. This is the first episode. I know you may have seen the pilot teaser that we've had up. Obviously, today we're going to discuss 5 things about your business needs to be aware of in 2025. Obviously, I'm Chris Wright, Director of IT Desk, and I'm sat here today with Morgan, our Technical Solutions Engineer. Morgan, just want to give us a bit of an introduction to yourself and what you do and what your job do and what your role is.
Yeah. So I'm Technical Solutions Engineer. My primary focus at my work is projects, implementation of a lot of things. A lot of implementing of servers, cloud solutions, email migrations. It's kind of taken away from that snapshot of somebody's business and adding or removing something.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I do.
Essentially, we come to you with a problem, and then you magic up a solution for that problem.
Yeah.
So essentially, making the impossible possible.
Try to.
That's it. Brilliant. No, thank you. Well, let's get started with the podcast.
Let's do it.
Microsoft, in their infinite wisdom, they've decided January 2025 they're going to roll out the new interface for business license on both standard and premium. So whether you're using the current classic interface or you are already using the new one, you're going to be having the new one come January. First question is, Morgan, are you using the new interface?
I am technically. I work from a Mac, so it's a bit of a different one, but it's still a new and a legacy one. But when I was on Windows 11, I was using the new version. It is better, I'd say. There's a lot of different things that people have to get used to, in like the way that you access it, the way that it looks and things like that. But a big point that I like about it is the fact it's kind of like the web app version.
That's what they've aimed to go for, and they make it more feel like the web app, which I've not used for a long time. The web app one, I mainly kind of just use old school the app on the desktop.
Yeah.
So
it's good in the fact that the old Outlook had like cache exchange settings. So you'd tell it download X amount of emails, don't download this shared mailbox, things like that. The new version doesn't give you that option to do that, but it's always downloading when you go onto it. So you haven't got that issue where some people may go onto their Outlook in the morning when they're signing on and they haven't got any new emails from like overnight if they've just expecting something. And then they have to change the settings, rebuild the profile, sign out and back in. It eliminates a lot of that area.
Gotcha.
It's got it's got a lot of nice customization that you can do to it to tailor it to how you want it to look as well. It is personally, it's a lot better than the classic version. But again, it's something that people need to get used to. Similar to Outlook and similar to Windows 10 versus 11, they're both things that there's a lot of benefits for the newer versions, but it's a lot of getting used to.
Don't go stealing my points now. That's later on. Can't take all content on first one. But yeah, no, I think that sounds good. So you're an advocate then for the new version, then, would you say?
I'd say so, yeah. A big difference, which this is more for my own role, being in like a projects area, doing a lot of migrations and things like that. The old version allows you to download the mailbox files. So say if I was migrating someone from one area to another, you could use that to download the files. But as things have changed in the admin side of things and user side, it's a lot better to just do it from the admin side now. So there's very few benefits of staying on the older version in my eyes.
Yeah, I think the only thing that we expect to see is, so COM add-ins aren't now supported on the new version, which I think could be a problem for anyone with legacy add-ins. So remember, like the old Sage add-ins and stuff like that, that'd be on there. That could cause an issue. And I think also it doesn't allow the support PSTs, which again, for anyone kind of on any legacy kind of mail, like pop, which we don't have anyone that kind of is on that, but for anyone on that legacy stuff, that's definitely going to be a concern of how that's going to work with using PSTs in the newer version. But yeah, no, in that case, we'll move on to point number 2, which is cloud or no cloud. Now, kind of on this one is through COVID, we saw quite a rapid increase in customers that were moving across to Azure and wanting to move their tendencies to the cloud.
Yeah.
obviously everyone kind of working from home, and we've still seen that uptake of customers wanting to go to the cloud. What I've seen is there's been more thinking from customers that are kind of going, right, do I go cloud or do I stay on-prem? They're now more thinking about it now rather than before, and it was like, let's just go. Let's
Yeah.
this remote working, hybrid working. This is brilliant for what we do. From a projects point of view, and from what you're dealing with a lot with our customers at the moment, how are you seeing the cloud and no cloud? What type of customers are you seeing moving over to that? Are you still seeing an appetite? Is there still a desire for it? And what are the success stories that you're finding with customers that are moving on to it?
I think the key point that obviously Microsoft pushes for Azure is like the flexibility and scaling of it.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, a big part of it being coming up to Christmas as of right now, a lot of companies will be closing for about a couple of weeks. So the benefit of being in that area in like Azure, if that's the cloud option you're going for, then you can scale down during that time. Say if you've only got like a skeleton staff on,
Yeah.
something like that. So you haven't got to worry about having to pay for that extra amount of resource that's not necessarily required for that period of time. And obviously, other companies may have different times where they're more busy than others. So they'll have, say, extra staff on, or they'll have more workload that needs to the servers or virtual resource needs to accommodate. So it's good in that respect.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. Speaking to a customer the other week, and it was something where they had a similar scenario where they have increased staff numbers at certain times of the year, decrease at other parts of the year,
Yeah,
and then they have quite decent shutdowns throughout. And you kind of think, well, actually, Azure is perfect for them because when rather than constantly paying for a server to keep on running and going, Azure is perfect by having the scaling plan where it just shuts everything down
yeah,
and not using it. Because obviously, historically, we've kind of looked that Azure is great for where there's a lot of change within the business or where they're kind of growing, expanding, or mergers. But looking at it from a point of view where there's a lot of change internally in terms of their staffing numbers increasing, decreasing, that's also a really good one.
yeah, definitely.
What type of customer then would you say shouldn't, where Azure may not fit for them? What kind of profile would they look like?
For not fitting a cloud model, I'd say CAD areas.
Yeah,
So there's areas that I've seen when we've looked at trying to get a customer's resources and everything into a cloud environment, but
yeah,
with CAD specifically, say like SolidWorks or I don't think AutoCAD as much, but specifically SolidWorks, it doesn't play well with Azure or cloud, just because of the amount of files that they need to edit and everything around there. It struggles to keep up with the amount of file changes as well as the cost implications
yeah,
of having those massive files. A better way to approach that would be if you were staying on-prem specifically for your CAD, use something like a NAS drive. So just have that on-site file storage, back that up somewhere,
yeah.
and you can access it over the local network and get those speeds that you actually require to get there.
Yeah, and that's an option for me. It kind of then you kind of like putting half the company on Azure and
Yeah,
retain half in. And I think there is the CAD alternatives that we can put into the cloud for the virtual desktop, which we have looked at quoting a few times. But I can see where you're coming from that, where it then becomes a cost. If you've then got a small kind of office team where a majority are CAD, and you've got high data, high IOPS, high in terms of usage, it then very, very quickly becomes quite an expensive resource to have if it's not being kind of in a larger infrastructure as such. So I think that things will change. I think Microsoft have announced there's going to be some price alignments or decreases next year. We've yet to see what that's going to look like. They've kind of give some yeah, some pricing options. So, and I think we'll see how that comes and see what happens there. But
a big part of that I'd give as an advice would be that prepare yourself to move to the cloud, because everywhere's moving towards the cloud now.
yeah,
Everyone wants to be in the cloud because it's very flexible. It's very good to use.
it's funny. Yeah, it's don't shut a don't shut yourself off and
Yeah.
go, right, I'm staying on-prem because I've got on-prem now,
Yeah.
so I ain't going to think about anything else. I think a lot of conversations that I've been having as well with customers when I've been to see them is kind of going, okay, right, it's probably not right for now, but we're either looking at elements that can help or planning for where they need to be, because they need to do some work in-house with either in-house applications, line of business applications that they have to do before they then look at moving over to the cloud.
Yeah. So specifically when we were talking about CAD and SolidWorks and things like that, when you come to that point of the year or quarter or bi-annually, whenever you're reviewing your business and figuring out where you're going to go, review your areas where you're stuck on-prem and see if there's a better solution you can put in place to allow you to move to cloud when possible.
Yeah. The next one, tying up on the cloud there, is Windows 10. Obviously, it's curtains for Windows 10 next year. October 2025 is when the extended support comes to an end. It's an officially AOL product. So obviously my question too is kind of, how's that going to impact what you're doing in terms of from businesses moving from 10 to 11? And where I'm kind of thinking there is there going to be a big shift change from kind of are people happy with Windows 11? Have you seen Windows 11? Oh, you obviously have seen Windows 11. You've been using Windows 11, but in terms of is it a major change? Do you feel that's going to be quite a software incompatibilities? Is there anything that we should be aware of or cautious of?
I'm pretty certain there are some software incompatibilities, but in my experience, a lot of the like EXEs and MSIs that I'm using to install bits of software in different areas, it's not caused an issue.
Yeah.
In personal preference, before I'd moved on to working from a Mac, I was on Windows 11 and I moved to it as soon as it came out, however long ago that was. But it did have a bit of a rocky start. I would say the first maybe 6 months, it wasn't the best solution to go for, but that's immediate release.
Yeah.
There's always going to be a risk that there's something that's not working when it first comes out.
It's usual Microsoft thing though, isn't it? Where they kind of have it beta, then it's like beta plus where you've got to use it for a period, and us as the end user, the same is going to happen with the Outlook.
Yeah.
They've kind of betaed it for a bit, have a go, see what you think. Then they'll force it onto the end users. One, it'll look good that they've got more people. Then they can go, hey, look, most people are now using the new interface.
Yeah.
And then ultimately, we'll be the one that are product testing. But
it's 1,000% in a better place than it was when it first came out. From the top of my head, I can't remember the specific issues, but I know there was little bits of things that weren't working as you'd want them to on Windows 11. But it's definitely a good product now. It's a step in the right direction, and it's very user friendly for the way that somebody'd want to use it in the day-to-day working. It's a good operating system.
So I'm one of those users that are on Windows 10 at the moment. Yeah. I'm planning to upgrade to 11 this year. What should if you had to kind of give me two things to say, these things you'll really like in Windows 11 compared to 10, is there two things that you could give me that are better than 10 that are good in 11? I appreciate I've really asked you a hard question because you've been on a Mac for
over a year.
So now I have to, what do you expect? Do you think I should see as an improvement?
I think in my position that's hard to answer, but I can't think of a negative. I'd say it's the way that there might be little things you'll go to access that are in a different area to what you're used to, but in terms of the way that you're using it, the way that you'll be getting to applications and things like that, it's the same thing. Cool. It's you get a bit more personalization around it, and like I said, the user interface is a lot better.
Brilliant. Well,
I think it'll be a smooth transition.
Yeah. I'll hold you to that one. Cool. It had to come up. It had to. We couldn't have 5 things and we couldn't talk about the 2 letters that everyone's been talking about, which is AI. Obviously, Copilot. Earlier this year, I know Ben, who manages a lot of security, he's been working hard to make sure that we're in a state where we're now ready Our tenancy is now ready for Microsoft for essentially rolling out Copilot, and we're not kind of chucking it out and just hoping for the best. So now he's got to a point where he's happy with that. We're now rolling out Copilot, and I'm pleased to say everyone now in the company has access to Copilot 365, which is fantastic. So obviously, I'm not going to go through what it is, what it does, or anything like that, because everyone, I'm sure by now, is literally probably bored to death with hearing about Copilot and what it can do, and Chat GPT and bots. But what I want to know is, how is it affecting you? And now, because of you being one of the early adopters with us, haven't you, since we were in Berlin earlier this year, how's Copilot helping you in your job role, and what impact is it having?
It's a massive time saver. In one specific way that I use it is I have a lot of catch-ups and scoping meetings, post meetings with clients for things that I'm implementing, like servers, migrations, things like that. A big thing is that we tend to have catch-ups around what's happening on the project, who's got to do what, whether it's a task for me to do or something for somebody to do internally there. It's very good that I found it was probably about a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago now, that I didn't have to take a single note in a project in a meeting. I just set Copilot off, told it to transcript the meeting, record it, and did the meeting as I usually would. Didn't have to note a single thing down. It got to the end of the meeting, and I just went onto the transcript and told Copilot to give me a list of tasks, a full summary, and it gave me everything that I knew that I'd spoke about since we just had the meeting. So I knew it was very accurate in what it was telling me.
Had it missed anything?
No.
Got everything?
Yeah.
And it got it all right?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
I was quite amazed by it, to be honest. I would say that it's not something in like that sense of me using it. It's not something where you should put your life on it and just fully trust it to do everything, because it's a computer. There's a chance that something's not correct, which is why I make sure to use it in that meeting and transcribe, get Copilot to go over the transcription straight after. So all of it's still fresh in my mind, so I know that it's picked everything up.
Yeah.
But it is a brilliant tool for a lot of things, but specifically in that area for me, it's a big time saver.
How much time would you say that saved you then per week?
I'd probably say a couple of weeks ago, I had a meeting that was probably about an hour long going over a project we was doing. And I probably would have spent 20, 30 minutes after going through all the notes that if I was in the meeting writing those notes, it'd just be a lot of scribbles that I've got to translate to English.
Yeah. I've got a notepad, and literally, there's people coming to me, what have you written? And I'm like, I can't even read it myself, my own writing.
It's good security. It's like real life encryption.
That's it.
But each meeting, I'd probably say it could save like up to like half an hour at least of of time where, and not only just time, but mental capacity. Like you're having to think a lot more about remembering specific parts, who has to do what, when, what you discussed during the meeting. It's a brilliant tool, and it's a massive help for the way that I work.
And that's just one part of what Copilot can do.
Very small part.
Which I think is interesting. Like, from having a conversation with clients about Copilot is difficult, because it's like trying to sell them Play-Doh.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's kind of, you can just put the lump on the desk and say, well, okay, right, well, why do I want this green Play-Doh, for example? But then trying to explain of how it can help the business. And I think the more we kind of discussed about how individual stories of how it's helped what they do. And I think as you go through, I think there'll be more elements and little bits that you use. But I think there'll be key bits where people go, yeah, for me, this is what it did and how much time it saved me. And it's kind of like having a little assistant, isn't it?
Yeah, it's exactly like that. What you were saying just then about showing it to someone that doesn't currently use like Copilot or any AI, you've got to kind of know what they do exactly to know the best use for them, because there'll be little things they do through the day that they might not realize that Copilot could help them, or AI in general, just to speed up the day, to save them time. And it is just a brilliant tool. It's just knowing exactly how to use it and where to use it.
Yeah.
Even like it was probably like mid last week, something as simple as having a CSV file full of emails, and I just needed to have a copy of them with a different domain at the end. I just copied it across, told Copilot to replace the domain with another domain. It's 5-10 seconds, and I didn't really have to think about whether I need to use a certain formula to do something or
Yeah.
manually type it, which would have took a while. It was like 100 email addresses.
Or write a formula, or
Yeah.
you know, what I mean, it's just literally done.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's good. No, that's. Is there anything where you will kind of go, actually, Copilot's not so great at this, or these are areas where you think it should be good at and not so good, or where you'd like it to be better at?
I couldn't say anything right now. Specifically in the way that I work with it, it's very powerful and helpful.
Yeah.
There's off the top of my head, I can't really think of a reason where somebody wouldn't be using it unless they're doing a very specific job that requires that keen eye to make sure things are working and going as they need it to.
Yeah.
It's there is a lot of cases where it can be used very well.
Do you think more businesses throughout 2025 will adopt Copilots, or do you think we'll see more installations throughout the year for Copilot?
I'd say so. A big part of it is, and you probably know if this isn't the case anymore, but I know that you have to annually commit to the license.
It's still the same. I think they still have an annual commitment. I think there has been, and I would have to double check this, I'm sure there's been where they can allow to pay monthly, but it's still an
You
annual
still have
commitment.
to stay on that
Yeah.
annual commitment. That's I feel like that's something that maybe scares people away a bit.
Yeah.
In the fact that you've either got to pay that certain amount every month for 12 months, and it may be that you get a month into it and you think, I don't have much use for this.
Yeah.
But I'd say probably 90% of people, maybe 80% of people that are working in all sorts of industries will have a good use for AI, whether it be Copilot, ChatGPT, any sort of AI model. They'll have a good reason to use it.
If you had to end then this segment on one thing, and kind of what piece of advice would you give to a business who's potentially sat on the fence about Copilot at the moment, what would that be?
I would say if you're unsure of Copilot or AI in general, try use ChatGPT for a bit, just like the web version, or even the web version of Copilot that's built in into your Microsoft account. Just try use that for a bit, and you ask it just like something where you're just sat there and trying to figure something out that you need to do, especially for something like my job where there may be like a problem that I need to solve on, say, like a server or a computer or something like that. I could either spend 10 minutes scrolling through forums online, searching on Google, or there's been a lot of times recently where I've just gone to Copilot and said, what do I need to do for this? I'm getting this error, or I'm doing this. Is this the best way to do it?
Cool.
And it'll give me a bunch of responses and reasons to do certain things a certain way. I'd say use some form of AI, Copilot, ChatGPT, and just see if you can speed up areas of your day in that way.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's not the only way that you're ever going to use Copilot if you went for it. There's obviously a bunch of other ways, but for me, that's a good start.
Yeah, I know Hydro are looking at ways where they can integrate that with line of business applications.
Yeah.
So looking at the Copilot Studio, and then looking at that further afield then with that. So I know Ryan and the team within Hydro are working on that at the moment. So I think there's going to be definitely, we're just literally starting something big.
Yeah.
It's being very quickly thrust upon us, and very quickly after just kind of handling Azure and kind of remote working, hybrid working. I think it's going to be very interesting, I think, on where things go. But I think you're right. I think dip your toe into it, get a little bit used to it, and just see how we can. And likewise, if anyone is struggling, we're more than happy to help anyone out with that.
Yeah. I just see the power of it, and you'll understand where it can go from there. Because there's a lot of things you think, yeah, it's not going to help me in this way, but give it a chance, and it's likely going to be able to speed up something that you're doing.
Yeah. Cool. And then moving on to the last section that we've got, segment 5, which is relating to security. obviously it's, in security now, Gartner have said that we're expecting a 15% increase in the expenditure of IT security this year compared to last year.
Yeah.
No. Next year compared to this
Yeah.
year, I'm more would it be? Depending when the podcast comes out.
As of right now, this
yeah.
year compared to next year.
We'll say if it's from 2024 to 25, they're expecting a 15% increase. We'll get it right. So they're expecting a 15 increase in expenditure, which is well into the high billions in what's been spent. Obviously, I appreciate this ain't your wheelhouse in terms of IT security. That obviously Ben, as the ISMS manager, that's where you would generally sit and be looking at security stuff. But I'm intrigued to see from what you're seeing from your point of view and what you've seen this year compared to previous years. Are you seeing that customers are more interested to kind of discuss and invest in security compared to what they have done previously? And is it more of a concern for customers now? At one point it was, we'll just put some antivirus on and that'll fix everything, because, I'm talking years and years ago. And trying to sell antivirus were hard enough at that point years and years ago, because people just thought it was a waste of money.
Yeah.
Obviously now completely different, absolutely completely different. There's literally every conceivable acronym you can have now for buying a security product. It can be a minefield out there. But from your point of view, are you seeing an increase now? Are clients looking to invest more in security?
I think the conversations I have, they don't really tailor towards security as much, but the areas that I do look at a lot are around Cyber Essentials and Cyber Essentials Plus.
Yeah.
This doesn't directly answer your question, but it's a good segue for people knowing how important the security is. Specifically with Cyber Essentials and Plus, is they see that as their security set. They've got that certificate that lasts them for a year, and they're set for that full year.
Yeah.
It is very much just a snapshot of that point in time of being secure.
Yeah.
A big point of Plus is making sure like your apps are up to date, like basic things like making sure your Edge is on the latest version, antivirus is on the latest version. But people see that as them being secure for that full year. It's something where obviously we're aware of making sure that our customers are secure in that aspect, but there also needs to be a bit of input from the customer's side of understanding why and understanding how to stay secure, because there's a lot of areas where they'll need to make sure they're updating certain things, like certain applications that they use that may come out with different security updates that patch certain little loopholes that somebody could break their way into. A big part of security that is more important than just us looking at their like a customer's infrastructure security as a whole is not just us being educated on it, but them as well, because there's a lot of things that them working physically in that environment, they can notice certain things that we wouldn't immediately notice because we're not experiencing it in real time. We may get a notification.
Human element, isn't it? There's a human risk. The kind of the device between the chair and the keyboard. I couldn't agree more on that one. I think that's definitely something that I know myself and Ben have been working on some new packages for next year for customers, and definitely kind of the top flight that we're looking on that is the human element on really, we've got strong infrastructures, we've got the locks on the doors and all the, and everything's in place, but if the keys for the kingdom are being given away, it can be sometimes quite difficult. Do you know what I mean? And I think and always with security, finding that fine balance between zero access and just enough access, so they're able to kind of perform what they need to do as a business securely. Because as people always say, the most securest, and if you want to make your machine ultimately secure, then just disconnect it from the internet and it'll be fine. You're not going to get any issues at that point. But that ain't going to work, is it? It's so I agree with you on that, the human element. And I think I think, yeah, definitely companies investing more in staff training,
Yeah,
investing more in phishing attacks and simulation phishing attacks, anything they can do
definitely.
internally
Yeah.
to educate them. Is it part of the security on the Cyber Essentials Plus? Is there anything element there about staff training awareness that has to be conformed from the plus side of it?
In the way that I deal with Cyber Essentials and Plus, the only areas that they really want you to know about is a lot around password policies rather than general security. It's very much make sure you have X amount of characters, this type of character, this type of character.
Mm,
It's less around the education of a user to know what they're accessing, how they're accessing. The the questions are more tailored around the admin side and how the admin stops the users from
yeah,
accidentally doing something that they shouldn't. Things like having the basis of like having no access and building an account up from there to give them permission to exactly what they need,
yeah,
and not going through the easy route that people like to do and just copy from another person's account because they're in a similar role.
yeah, yeah.
It's a very much yeah, like I was saying, it's very much like the admin side of knowing exactly what to do, less around the user side, but definitely it should be something that businesses should look into to make sure they're educating staff and making sure they know what security needs to be in place and how they need to view how they work to make sure they are secure and not opening up any doors for somebody to get into their computer or any way like that.
Do you feel that there's going to be an increase of customers looking at Cyber Essentials next year and then kind of improving on that landscape? Do you reckon?
Um, I wouldn't say there's much of an increase because I feel like most people view Cyber Essentials as just something that's required if they're working with a certain company. I feel, in the
Yeah.
ways that I've seen it, it's more of people come to want Cyber Essentials if they work with a certain company that requires them to have that, in the scale that we work with.
Mm.
So it's definitely something that people should look towards implementing more because it's a very good baseline for them to get on security a lot better.
Do you feel that? Do you feel that once you've completed a Cyber Essentials or even Cyber Essentials Plus, would you confidently say that yes, the customer is more secure than what they were when they started? Do you feel like that's an improvement? Does the badge of honor hold any merit?
It holds merit for about a day.
Right.
If you see it as just getting that certificate on the day of your Cyber Essentials or Plus going through, and you just see that point, and then you just hang it up on your wall, show your customers that you've working to that standard, it loses all use really. You need to make sure you're staying on top of what it is that it implements, like the security levels that you have on like your password policy or the document permissions, making sure your computer's up to date, software's up to date, all security updates. If you just get that certification and say I'm done for the year, then it kind of defeats the purpose of actually doing it in the first place.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, it's kind of like um, where it'll kind of come into practice, or where we, and I'm sure this is what we do, is where customers that have continued to maintain their security there afterwards makes the job a little easier for them for the following year to go through.
Yeah,
But what I think probably the advice of what you're giving is don't just kind of get the cert and then forget about it.
yeah,
Continue reinvesting back into your security. Don't just kind of let it lapse and just go, well, that's enough. Don't need any
yeah.
more from that.
A big thing that I speak to customers about when implementing Cyber Essentials is the certain areas that it touches on. Make sure that's put into like your company handbook or policies
Yep.
to say you have to do these certain things. And I feel like that helps with making sure that when users do read through that and say like a new starter comes in or somebody changes position or people that just want to refresh themselves, they can see those areas and know that they need to work to that standard.
Fantastic. No, that helps me actually because I know we do a lot with the cybersecurity, but it's not very often that we get the chance to sit down and really kind of talk about it
Yeah.
in the way that we just have. So no, it's been quite helpful.
Yeah.
So that wraps it up for kind of 5 things that you need to be aware of for your business in 2025. Obviously, I'd want to say a big thank you for Morgan, obviously our technical solutions engineer. Obviously, he's incredibly busy at the moment. So for me to kind of pull him out for an hour and spare some time with us to discuss is fantastic. So hopefully you found that useful. And yeah, look forward to the second podcast where I think we're going to go a little bit more on the security. I think we've got Ben for the next one. So, but yeah, thank you very much, and yeah, see you all on the next one.
Thank you.